It's Disability History Month. Today I'm in London and we are going down memory lane. Hi Dr. Munot, good to see you. Do you remember the last time we met?
Of course, Callum, yes, I do remember you. It was many years ago.
Many years ago, wasn't it?
It's a long time.
Maybe like 5-6 years ago?
That was the last time we met, but I think the first time we met was around maybe 10 years ago, maybe.
10 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long
Now
time.
I'm 20 years old. Crazy. I was going to say, do you have any memories of when we met? And I know I have a few memories, and one in particular. I don't know if you remember, I had to have a biopsy and a blood test. And at the time I hated blood tests. The one thing I wouldn't do. And I wouldn't let the nurses do it, so you ended up having to do them. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I don't remember that particular moment, but I do remember you from the consultations and
Yeah.
you know how there were some difficult times at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just to let everyone know, what is it you do at Great Ormond Street Hospital?
So I'm a child neurologist, so I look after children and young people with neurological conditions affecting mostly their muscles and nerves and causing problems with movements.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get into that? What led you to want to do neurology?
So I've always been training in pediatrics, but when I was looking after children, I was particularly interested in understanding more about the nerve muscle conditions which affect children. And as I learned more and more, I wanted to get more involved in helping these children, contributing to their, their functioning and how I could help to make things a little bit better.
Do you find the job rewarding?
Absolutely. I think I find it very, satisfying if I can, make any difference or contribute to any family's difficulties.
What does a day in the life of a neurologist look like?
So I think the work that I do is actually like a mix of clinical work. So we generally see children, either we see them on the ward or I see them in clinics. We try to understand what's the problem they're having. Apart from that part, we have like a diagnostic work to do, so to understand what conditions must be affecting them. And while we do that, we are always teaching juniors and students. We do research, as well as we work with all our therapists and nutritionists, dietitians, physiotherapists. So a lot of multidisciplinary coordination goes on in the background. So some of our time is spent in coordinating the care, working with the local community as well.
So very busy.
Yeah, it is a little bit, but yeah, it's rewarding, so it's fun.
So I specifically want to educate people on what I deal with, and that is, let me get the name right, hyperkalemic periodic paralysis. Can you explain in basic terms what that is and how it affects me?
I think the periodic paralysis generally is, I'll talk more about periodic paralysis because that's slightly more common. It's a genetic condition where young people or children get attacks or episodes of muscle weakness that come and go, and they are related to the level or amount of potassium in the blood. Now, potassium is an electrolyte and we all need it for our muscles to function. So depending on if the attacks happen when the potassium level is high, we call it hyperkalemic. If the potassium level is low, we call it hypokalemic. But essentially it causes muscle weakness, which comes and goes on a daily basis.
What can cause that weakness?
So in this context, it's usually a genetic condition. There's a mutation or a change in the gene which can lead to this channel not functioning very well, and therefore the level of potassium varies. It's not something which happens to you after you're born, so it's genetic, inherited.
Do you know roughly how many people deal with the condition?
I think if you put it all together, all types of periodic paralysis, it's about 1 in 100,000 roughly. Different types have different incidents, but the whole group is about 1 in 100,000.
It's very rare.
It's very rare.
Is that special?
You're very, very special. Always have been.
So how, since first meeting me, and I believe you diagnosed me with it, that was 10 years ago now, roughly. How has the understanding of the condition progressed? What was it like at the start, and how has it come on?
Yeah, so I think, since the time that we learned about this type of presentation of this gene, there have been many more descriptions in scientific literature of how this gene might affect people that have been reported, and we are getting much more clever at diagnosing this and being able to recognize this a bit more sooner, whereas previously when this was not known, it would take many, many years to get to the bottom of the problem. We're also understanding mechanistically how this gene affects and what symptoms it might cause.
How many people or like does it take to research this type of condition? Like, is it global? Is it just national? What goes into it?
So I think periodic paralysis is in it's a rare condition, and therefore it's not within a particular neuromuscular service you might not see it as common, but internationally if you put all the affected people together, it's quite a substantial group, and if you have a muscle condition called congenital myopathy where you have muscle weakness from birth, that's even rarer. So those kind of people might be in only in double digits maybe. So it's very, very extremely rare.
So I'm even rarer.
Even more special. That's right.
So do you have to share that information with doctors from all over the world, and then you guys come together, talk about different medical cases? And
so generally when we find something which is novel in science, we have to have robust process in place to document that, get it reviewed by our peers internationally, and the work we do to try and substantiate our hypothesis that this is the condition. It involves a lot of international collaboration, laboratory work to try and make sure we've understood and we are along the right paths, and we've done it in a simple but scientific way.
what is it that you guys have found out that can help balance out the condition and help people live their life to the fullest as they can?
I think getting a good understanding of the condition, what we call the mechanism through which the symptoms have been caused, helps us to develop treatments, interventions, what sort of things might be useful. For example, in periodic paralysis, generally we give some advice about diet, we give some advice about lifestyle modifications because we've understood that might help. So simple measures may go a long way in actually improving the quality of life of a child or a young person, minimize their hospital admissions, for example, allow them to go to school, stay at home with simple things.
Would you be able to give some examples of what kind of like diet changes or things that I would be doing to minimize that?
So I think in periodic paralysis in general, we recommend, if it's a hypokalemic periodic paralysis where the potassium level is low, we recommend a diet which is moderate or low in carbohydrates, because we know carbohydrates are food items contain glucose, and when you take glucose, your level of insulin goes up and the potassium level can drop. That can trigger an attack. So because we understand that, we recommend that the affected people have a diet which is high fiber, so the glucose gets absorbed slowly and it doesn't cause the drop in the potassium and trigger an attack. So that reduces the number of attacks. That's just one of the measures, but also the amount of food which contains potassium. So in hyperkalemic periodic paralysis, where you have high potassium, we might say that consume foods which have less potassium, so your level doesn't go up and doesn't trigger an attack. So it just depends what type it is.
Which one you have. Yeah. Is there any like sort of medicines that people take that helps?
Yes, so these are not medicines which can, cure or take away the genetic mutation, but there are medicines which can help to manage symptoms. A little bit like when you have a temperature, you take paracetamol. So they last for a few hours, but they can help regulate your potassium and reduce the severity of the attacks, or even might reduce how frequent the attacks are. So you might still have attacks, or one might still have attacks, but they can be more manageable. So allowing again to be able to carry on with normal life, but with minimum symptoms.
How did that research come up with the idea to experiment with certain medicines to help minimize symptoms?
So, I mean, I'll just speak about the generic research rather than specific to periodic paralysis. But whenever we have a new, let's say, medication that has been brought out or shown in, so the first starts with, work in the laboratory and the animals, to try and see if this is working. We call it the proof of concept. And once we develop that, then we have to make sure it's safe for human beings to take it. We need to make sure there are no side effects. It goes through quite thorough regulatory processes. Once that's been completed, it has to be tested for whether it's going to be working, as in, does it actually have efficacy? Does it change symptoms? Does it make people better? And that has to be shown in a large number of people to then go to the stage of what we call licensing. And the regulatory bodies have to look at all the data to make sure it's safe. So in the UK, we have MHRA, which is a body which regulates. In the US, there's FDA that regulates the medication. Once it's been approved, then it's licensed, and clinicians like me are able to prescribe it.
Yeah.
So even after it's first approved, there's a long period of observing for side effects, because sometimes they might come up afterwards. They might not come up in the initial, what we call the research phase of clinical trial phase.
Yeah, that's like when you start doing blood tests and kidney scans to make sure.
So that is the part of any medication will have a list of safety monitoring that we have to do. And that's things like blood tests, or we might do scans, or we might do levels, depending on the side effect profile of any particular medication.
Yeah, I think mine is like kidney stones and stuff like that. From memory, yeah. So I had to get checked for that. What is it like seeing me here now, 10 years later from when we first met? Now I've moved out of my home. I'm living life to the fullest. What does it mean for you to see me again? And what is it like? Is it weird? Is it?
No, I think it's a delight and a pleasure to see you and to see you functioning and contributing fully. It's that's always the what I say, the goal that I set for myself, is to be able to see children, just being children, just being normal young people, and adults being young people and adults. And as much as I'd like to see them, not having to see me is great.
Yeah.
And it gives me great satisfaction to see you that, you are able to, carry on independently despite having the diagnosis. And it's not, there may be challenges, but you are, able to achieve what you want to achieve despite them. And that's what I would also like to, enable my patients to do.
Yeah, it feels nice being able to see you after 10 years and kind of being able to show that I've managed to progress. And yeah, I was very different 10 years ago, but now I'm a lot stronger and a lot better.
It's fantastic.
And I would say, what would you say to people watching? What would you say to them about people with genetic conditions what should they know? What would your message be to the people that might not know about any of these sort of conditions? Yeah.
I think in terms of periodic paralysis, I do find that sometimes, general population, for example, teachers or, school or people who are not living with these conditions might find it difficult to understand the fluctuation.
Yeah.
And I find that very challenging sometimes when children or young people can look completely fine one day and not be fine another day when they're in the middle of an attack. And I think that, listening to young people like yourself when they say that this is what is happening and, looking for these kind of conditions which are rare and referring them to, hospitals like Thomas Street and specialist assessments is helpful, because then they can get the right diagnosis and the right management.
You also get a lot of support from it as well in other areas of life. But yeah, it's been really nice to see you, and thank you so much for doing this with us.
It's a pleasure, Callum. I wish you all the best.
And I wish you all the best too.
Thank you.